the scope and magnitude of the conflict or this engagement between two nations is at a point or at a threshold where our adversary has to actually accept what they wish to do, or they have to decide what they wish to do. Now, the situation here is different. Today, the both the sides need not employ their offensive air power to rain bombs on each other's towns or targets. That can be delivered by standoff means, by missiles and rockets, without aircraft flying over each other's territory. So this has been demonstrated to a large extent in the past nearly 96 hours. See, it's like this, that no one wishes to take a chance. Let's be very clear on that. Because how the escalation will move up vertically, how will it move up laterally, no one can predict at this point of time. Because each moment, whether it's a 24-hour cycle or an 8-hour cycle or a window of 6 hours broken into 4 parts, what is happening operationally on the front, whether it's on the line of control, international border, on the high seas, or as far as airspace management is concerned, is a military evaluation. Based on the military evaluation, the government decides what is likely to happen. See, first of all, if emergency powers have been announced or declared, it is basically for the safety and security of all infrastructure assets of that particular location, the human beings, the lives, and anything that is connected to minimize damage which may be caused by enemy action from bombing, drones, air attacks, and any such like activities which may be carried out during the daytime or during the night. That is the first point. It is always better to avoid such discussions where you are pinpointing what the armed forces can do or would do or should do. That should be avoided, and I think it should be a very clear reporting. In fact, there used to be excellent TV reporting nearly about 2 to 3 decades ago. They were very simple. They reported to the point, and the viewer understood and then made his own assessment. So this definitely, what you're saying, needs to be avoided. But I don't know why they do it. Maybe they have sanctions to do it. I don't know.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought provoking conversations. It's day 3 of Operation Sindoor. In fact, last night was a long one for our defense forces because the Pakistani forces had attacked the border areas in Jammu Kashmir. In fact, parts of Punjab were also hit with drones and missiles, but the Indian forces successfully neutralized Pakistan. But there is no dearth of misinformation. How does one tackle that? And there have been a series of review meetings since morning. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, he met the Tri-Services Chief along with the Chief of Defense Staff. Similarly, Home Minister had a meeting with the BSF Chief and the CISF Chief. So lots of review is happening, but is the conflict widening is the million-dollar question. And is it really getting transformed into a war-like situation? How long will this conflict continue? These are some questions which afflict everyone's mind. And also, there's a lot of panic and fear amongst the people. There are questions as to will the prices rise? Should we travel? Should we tank up our vehicles with the fuel? Should we stock up rations? So, how does one mitigate this panic? Should there be more advisories coming from the government side? So we'll try and discuss all these questions today. So joining me this evening is retired Brigadier Ajit Apte. So thank you so much for joining on HW. And it's been a chilling night. In fact, last night, what was playing out on the television channels, and especially the mainstream channels, the way they showed. Uh, I will not get into the details of that. But my first question to you is that is the conflict really widening? And are we seeing an escalation with every passing day? Yes, sir.
So, to give you some thoughts, it's like this that today we are on D plus 2, D day being the night of 6th and 7th May, and today we are on day 3, as you said. Is the conflict widening? Now, first of all, uh, the scope and magnitude of the conflict or this engagement between two nations is at a point or at a threshold where our adversary has to actually accept what they wish to do, or they have to decide what they wish to do. As is well known, we carried out a response action on night 6 7. We gave them an opportunity to realize that, look, we have retaliated to your heinous crime or heinous genocide on 22nd April. So we have given you a taste or a, although uh, in simple terms, what we can do, what we will do, and what we should do. But they apparently did not accept it, and they gave a strong retaliation, which was a little above our anticipated, expected response from their side. That is point number one. This uh, excessive response action came yesterday night between midnight till nearly about, or even before midnight, and it carried on. It appeared to be, you know, uh, uh, a haphazard, system of attacking us right from the north down to various places, which I will not repeat. They're already well known. But starting from Srinagar, coming down to Jammu, Pathankot, Amritsar, Jalandhar, then going on to the western front into the desert, then before that Samba and all these places, Jammu. So there's been a lot of firing by their missiles, by their drones, swarm drones, and all these weapon systems. However, these 80% of them were negated by us, or even 90%. 10%, of course, as you know, any defensive mechanism can be penetrated up to some extent. Also, there have been reports of enemy aircraft having intruded into our airspace, whereas we haven't done that. So ours have been more of standoff attacks from our side of the international border or our side of the line of control with a calculated, well measured response. The other part is we have definitely not targeted civilian or economic targets or infrastructure targets. However, if by virtue of their proximity being close to certain terrorist camps, that percentage of collateral damage may have been there, but it was unintentional. And this happens in all conflicts or all wars. Unintentional collateral damage can take place, but that is a very, very minimal percentage. But now coming to the other point of your question, the misinformation, disinformation, and panic. Now, what happens is when a conflict takes place, like if you, I have to take your mind and my mind back 54 years ago to the 1971 war or the 99 Kargil conflict. Now, what happens is uh, there is set piece information which came in 1971, which started with a series of events: hijacking of the Indian Airlines aircraft in January, then blowing it up, then the trouble on the Eastern Front in East Pakistan, the genocide, and everything that followed. Then there were diplomatic initiatives, political initiatives, and finally, the stage was set for a conflict or a war, which was provoked by Pakistan, by carrying out a preemptive strike on 3rd December 1971, and India responded in a very befitting manner. Now, that was war, where war was declared by our Prime Minister then. Today, the situation is, and that time also there was media reporting, but it was restricted to the print media and the radio broadcasts. There was nothing else. So the number of journalists who would pass back information that would get reported the next day, there was a time gap of 24 hours or 12 hours if there were evening newspapers, which were done during the 71 war. But unlike today, where there are various social media platforms like the WhatsApp, Signal, Twitter, and all these handles. Then you've got the TV news channels, which are at least about 25 of them in English, Hindi, and vernacular language. Each one giving his own, piece of information, colored also, exaggerated. So the public who is viewing the channels, if I flick the channels in about 1 minute, I may flick about 5 channels, and I'll get 5 different varieties of food or news to enjoy, and then it is left to me to find out what exactly is the correct information. Now, this is the biggest, uh, disadvantage. Coupled with that, you find the WhatsApp messages, and 80% of them are forward.
Are you saying, Brigadier Apte, that the social media is multiplying or compounding the problems?
Yes, it is. Because I'll tell you what, you have asked a very pertinent question that people are getting panicky. Should I should I top up my vehicle with petrol because there may be a petrol crisis? Should I plan to get an inverter because we may be without lights? We may be without the basic commodities
True.
and necessities that a person requires to maintain his household. Then, if I have to travel, should I travel or not travel? Here are the basic things. And is it safe to go to a particular place? Now, all these are based on certain information which a person gathers and then collates, evaluates, and takes a decision. And he is under stress, he is under fear. Also, he is under fear that will he be targeted? Will his city or town be targeted? Because now he has seen so much on the television and various playbacks of the video clips with the drones and missiles in the dark skies, hovering on top and then crashing down on the ground. So everyone is worried. Will I be affected? Will my city, my location be hit? Now, the situation here is different. Today, the both the sides need not employ their offensive air power to rain bombs on each other's towns or targets. That can be delivered by standoff means, by missiles and rockets, without aircraft flying over each other's territory. So this has been demonstrated to a large extent in the past nearly 96 hours. So
Right.
this is a clear indication.
Yes. Now,
Yeah.
the news coming in, Brigadier Apte, is that the Ministry of Home Affairs, they have ordered the union territories and the states to invoke emergency powers under civil defense rules. Now, the kind of conflict we are seeing and the kind of escalation we see on both sides, does it really require to invoke emergency powers at this point of time? And how will it be justified?
See, it's like this, that no one wishes to take a chance. Let's be very clear on that. Because how the escalation will move up vertically, how will it move up laterally, no one can predict at this point of time. Because each moment, whether it's a 24-hour cycle or an 8-hour cycle or a window of 6 hours broken into 4 parts, what is happening operationally on the front, whether it's on the line of control, international border, on the high seas, or as far as airspace management is concerned, is a military evaluation. Based on the military evaluation, the government decides what is likely to happen. And
No,
that
so
is,
which means, Brigadier Apte, if on the third day, if the Home Ministry feels the need to invoke the emergency powers and has given orders to the union territories and the states, so does it indicate that the situation is getting serious and it's concerning and there are chances that it might escalate further, which is why the emergency powers have been invoked?
I'm coming to that. You see, once that basic evaluation has been done, and we have reached a point that what is happening today, we carry out a certain amount of prediction. We decide what can happen and therefore what it will be its impact on the civilians, and therefore the civil defense mechanism is given directions by the MHA, the Ministry of Home Affairs, that your civil wardens, civil defense mechanism must be put into gear. It is nothing to panic, it's a routine thing which is
No, but
required.
if I may just clarify it for the viewers, many people wouldn't know that what happens. I mean, are there reasons to worry, or this is just a vigilant step which the administration is taking? So, what will happen when you invoke emergency powers under the civil defense rules? Then, what are the citizens supposed to prepare for? What all can happen?
Yes. So there is firstly nothing to panic. That's point number one. It is a precautionary measure taken with a calculated assessment of what has happened till today, what has been the pattern of escalation in the past 24, 48, 96 hours, and with the other agencies being co-opted into that particular scenario, what is expected to happen so that no one is caught off guard, because anything can happen and maybe nothing will happen, but it is better to err on the plus side rather than be taken off guard. Like, for example, what happened at Pahalgam. There were certain, there were no indicators to start with, and everything was a total 100% surprise. Today, we have a scenario where there are two conflicting nations. There is a certain piece of or a pattern of events which have unfolded in the past 48 hours, and therefore we carry out a predictive analysis what could happen. It's better to be safe, it's better to be guarded, and it's better to cater for any unforeseen circumstances, and it is better to err on the plus side. If nothing happens, very good. If something happens, you are ready for it. I must take your mind back during the Second World War, in the Battle of Britain, when the Germans unleashed their air power on London, up to nearly 117 attacks in a cycle of 24 hours. London was bombed excessively, but the manner in which they stood up, the gas masks, the air raid precautions, the bunkers, the shelters, the food, the rationing, everything was planned, everything was done because they had a taste of it. And that is why they could sustain from 1940 to 1945 with intermittent German air assaults. So,
Right.
same way it applies to us also. But let
No, we
me,
get an update.
yeah,
We get an
many,
update. One question which I have in mind is that when you invoke the emergency powers, can it also lead to, the harassment of the ordinary citizens? Because many times it happens that, the ordinary citizen gets troubled unnecessarily. Maybe some cases are lodged unnecessarily. Maybe the movement might be curbed. So, is that also a possibility which one needs to be vigilant about? I'm not saying that the government shouldn't do it, because at this point of time, if it is required and if the MHA has ordered emergency powers to the states and the union territories, so are there chances that the citizens might get troubled or harassed also in this process?
yes, why not? I mean, if a government order comes that they are expecting something and they need certain rules and regulations to be followed, congregation, closing down of certain restaurants, bars, not to be open after a particular timing, thinning down of traffic on the road, because the more traffic, the more number of people, the more crowding, you are giving a lucrative target for an attack. So stay indoors, carry out the ABCD, drills that have been given, enough water to, firefighting measures, first aid, evacuation, stretcher bearer drills. Why not? And what is wrong with the public? If the armed forces today are fighting for you on the front line, it behoves of
Absolutely.
every citizen of this country to follow the discipline that is expected. This is the least that the normal citizen can do. As it is, he's sitting in his air conditioned environment. So even if the people can't go to the market, can't enjoy their various activities in restaurants and hotels, why not? I'm even asking one question. The IPL is on, and it yesterday's match was called off at Dharamsala, and I hope the IPL is completely scrapped. It is absolutely immature on part of the country and the people who are organizing IPL that here two nations are on the verge or threshold of something big likely to happen. How can you play cricket? How can you do this gambling game of people putting money? And this is not a festival going on now. The country is in dire need. The country needs support. Your armed forces are fighting for you 24 by 7. They are there to defend you, and you want to play an IPL match. I think it's absolutely ridiculous because I did hear this comment that, oh, the IPL match. What is IPL? IPL is nothing. Throw it out. People are only making money on this. When fine, enjoy the game, but when today there's a national calamity, please let's behave ourselves.
Right. Uh, 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 Brigadier Apte, but there's another question that on the role and the responsibility of the mainstream media, the kind of trigger happy anchors and the kind of warmongering we see on the mainstream channels. Uh, is that really required? Because when you need to have a very balanced approach towards the coverage, when you need to talk about some sense to the people, you need to warn and alert the people, and in the middle of that, when you switch on the mainstream media and the kind of warmongering and filibustering you see, what is your assessment about the role of media at this point of time, especially when it comes to mainstream media?
Yeah, actually, the mainstream media needs to be responsible, measured in what they put it across accurately without being over sentimental or over emotional. It is important to report accurately with the correct ethos because if you misrepresent, if you overdo something or exaggerate, you are giving a wrong picture. And any sane audience can make out that this particular TV anchor is hyping up, shouting, getting over emotional, and trying to swing the mood of the people, which is not correct. Also, I must say that the media must be guarded. When you are talking about military options, when you are talking about the armed forces, there is a requirement to exercise restraint, constraint, and remember that discussing military options and portraying them all over the world is counterproductive from a security perspective. It is always better to avoid such discussions where you are pinpointing what the armed forces can do or would do or should do. That should be avoided. And I think it should be a very clear reporting. In fact, there used to be excellent TV reporting nearly about 2 to 3 decades ago. They were very simple. They reported to the point, and the viewer understood and then made his own assessment. So, this definitely what you're saying needs to be avoided. But I don't know why they do it. Maybe they have sanctions to do it. I don't know. I mean, that you would know better.
Right. I'll come back to the question of the emergency powers, that how Home Ministry has ordered the union territories and the states now to invoke emergency powers under the civil defense routes. If I may ask you to encapsulate again once for the viewers that what all can happen or what all does it include when we talk about emergency powers, if I may ask you for a list of things which the citizens need to follow and what the administration might do, if you could just elaborate that, sir.
See, first of all, if emergency powers have been announced or declared, It is basically for the safety and security of all infrastructure assets of that particular location, the human beings, the lives, and anything that is connected to minimize damage which may be caused by enemy action from bombing, drones, air attacks, and any such like activities which may be carried out during the daytime or during the night. That is the first point. Second point is the civil defense highlights and specifies the areas like schools, colleges, hospitals, then parks, various other workplaces, how the employees there should be disciplined to carry out what exactly when an air raid siren is sounded. Now, these days in the corporate sector, we have employees 24 by 7. We have employees who are male and female. We have children. We have schools. Probably now some of the schools are closed. But there are schools, there are colleges, there are education institutions, there are shopping malls. So all these would constitute as part of the civil defense mechanism to nominate and earmark civil defense wardens who will be responsible at each point of time how to collect people, how to get them together in discipline. If there are underground bomb shelters, how to take them there. If there are basements in big buildings, how to go there. If there are no basements, how people should crouch in the corner of a room, because should there be debris falling down with the person's head down, he is likely to be less impacted by the rubble falling down, or even if there is a bomb or a splinter which is likely to hit. The next point is in societies where people are staying, residential complexes, again there is a strict procedure to be followed, which will come in the charter of the civil defense wardens points. Then there are civil defense wardens who are nominated locality wise with a police control, with the due first aid mechanism allotted, with the stretcher bearers, ambulances, hospitals within the vicinity will also be cautioned that look, if such a thing happens, you can get a large influx of patients who are wounded. So that is the next part. Third is hospitals. There have been cases in the past in 1965 when a military hospital was targeted by the enemy, and it has happened in the Second World War also. So these things can happen. We have to take precautionary measures. Then the actions at night, how to do the blackout. Let's say cars are on the road. There were earlier instructions for the headlights to be blackened on the top so that the beam of the light is only on the ground, or how to drive with side lights, or how to drive without any light, how to avoid traveling after hours of darkness so that no vehicle is picked up by enemy aircraft or by enemy radar or other systems. Now, today, the complexion of war has changed. It has evolved. We are no longer into the old generation weapons and ammunition systems, which were there about 50 years ago. Today, it is all high tech. Satellite imagery can pick up towns and cities and their activities and pass it on. And you've got delivery systems which can home on to targets that may be civilian or military. So that has to be bifurcated. There has to be an overall discipline amongst the people, the citizens, and they must become responsible that look, if the emergency measures have been given, they are for the good of all. Now, finally, I come to the part of petrol, oil, your other daily commodities, water, and other sources of energy that you may have, and how to maximize with minimum use. How to maximize. Don't do any hoarding because that is wrong. So the government or that particular civil warden must, if required, if it's a long drawn affair, I don't think this will be a long drawn one, but they issue ration cards that if a particular situation goes on beyond a week or a month, then how each family is to get what allocation of the groceries and other essential items. Those ration cards are given. But in our context, I don't think such a situation will come. That happened only during the Second World War. It is unlikely to happen. And in our normal assessment, I don't think this will go on for too long, but one never knows. So the Home Ministry, the other ministries who are involved have taken the correct precautionary measures so that tomorrow no citizen can say that we were not given adequate warning or adequate measures for civil defense were not established or even implemented. That is the main.
So we'll have to wait and watch. The situation seems to be sensitive. One has to be vigilant and guarded. Thank you so much, Brigadier Apte. It was wonderful having you on the program. Thank you, sir.